Yo, what's up, guys? It's Noah here breaking down the NBA slate on Draftkings and Yahoo for Tuesday, December the 10th. Just a four-gamer today, so pretty short slate for a Tuesday. But we're going to run through each position like we always do. I'll touch on the plays that stand out to me the most. Just looking at this slate the night before, recording this video on Monday night, so these will be my first looks at the slate. If you do want to get access to all my updated content, I do post content throughout the day over on Patreon. I have a full in-depth article breaking down the slate, talking about all my favorite plays. It's usually a 7 to 8 page article that I write Monday through Friday. I also do post a roster construction video around 4:30 Eastern Time over on Patreon. It's pretty much a video where I talk through the slate again with updated news. I talk about roster construction, how I'm looking to build out my lineups, how I feel like we should be building out our lineups for that night's slate. And then at 5:30 Eastern Time, I do post an updated core plays. The core plays I do update all the way up until lock, giving you guys the most up-to-date injury news, providing you the most up-to-date plays that I'm on. So if you want to check out all the content I have available over on Patreon, I would greatly appreciate it. I do have NFL content over there as well for those of you that do play NFL DFS. Also, would appreciate if you would drop a like on the video as always. Greatly appreciate that. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you are new and click that notification bell so that way you get notified every time I upload. Also, if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can do so. My Twitter is at DFS by Noah. Link is also down in the description. But let's go ahead and run through this four-game slate. We'll just do a quick run through of it. So starting off at point guard, we got Trey Young as the most expensive point guard on today's slate, and he's also the most expensive player overall at $10,400 on DraftKings. He's also the most expensive player on Yahoo at $46. So this isn't the best spot for Trey Young against the Heat. The Heat are a really solid defensive team. Given that he's the most expensive player on the slate, I'm not saying he's a bad play today. I mean, on a four-game slate, Trey Young's never going to be a bad play. But there are some other studs I like today. Like you have Bradley Beal in a really good matchup against the Hornets for 11 or over 11 or 1,100 cheaper on DraftKings. You got Jimmy Butler for $1,300 cheaper in a matchup against the Hawks, and we've seen Jimmy Butler's just usage so far the last few games with no Dragic, no Winslow. Butler just continues to be a usage monster. He's playing 40 minutes a night. I mean, he's playing huge minutes right now. He's a top stud for me. Even Jokic down at 9K against the Sixers, I have some interest in. He's actually had some success against Joel Embiid just this season and throughout the past. I was looking on StatMuse just to see how Jokic has done the last few seasons against Embiid. Last year, he did have two pretty solid games against him. So I'm not really worried about that matchup for Jokic. He's been playing better as of late as well. And then you even got like Damian Lillard against the Knicks for 8,800. So don't see Trey Young being a top priority for me unless I'm like game stacking that game. If I have a lot of exposure to Miami, which I probably will today, and I want to like run it back with someone from Atlanta, then that's probably where I'll look for Trey Young or look to Trey Young. But I don't see him being a core play for me today. In Damian Lillard at 8,800, I do have interest in against the Knicks, but I don't think he's going to be a core play either just because I prefer Bradley Beal and Jimmy Butler. I think Beal and Butler are like the two guys I want to build around today. So we'll look in the mid-range for point guards. I think this is where I find some options that I do like. Terry Rozier is someone I want to talk about on Yahoo. So he's pretty nicely priced at only $24. DraftKings priced him up a lot for this matchup. He's up to $7,400 on DK. I really don't have much interest in him like in that price range or at that price tag, I should say. For Rozier to pay off that price, like you need him to get over 40 DraftKings points, which obviously he can do. But I think it's more likely you're going to get probably like 35 DK or 35 fantasy points from Rozier, which doesn't really get the job done at that price tag. But over on Yahoo at only $24, even if Rozier only gets like 30 to 35 fantasy points today, that's still a pretty solid play at $24. And Rozier has the 40, 50-point upside in this matchup. We've seen him go for big games this season, 50 fantasy points against the Warriors, 36 against Detroit, 34 against Miami. He's had big games, 49 against Memphis, 48 against the Kings. The upside is there for Terry Rozier. If there was ever a spot for him to put up a big game, it would be here against the Wizards in this game. The Wizards do rank third in pace this season, so they are a very fast-paced team. This is a pace-up spot for the Hornets. If we look at defensive rating as well, these are two of the worst defensive teams in the league. The Wizards are dead last at 30th. The Hornets are 28th. So this is for sure going to be a game we want to target just given how bad these two teams are defensively. And Terry Rozier at only $24 on Yahoo does stand out as one of the better point guard options today. We're going to talk about Ish Smith in a second. I do like Smith as well $18, you could definitely look to him. But Trey Rozier, pretty strong play on Yahoo at $24. But then the other point guards we could look to do have some injuries here. Justice Winslow and Goran Dragic both have already been ruled out today, which will open up some plays that we'll talk about in a second. RJ Barrett, he's coming off a pretty solid game last game. He played 36 minutes. The Knicks finally had a competitive game against the Pacers, only lost by 1, and Barrett played 36 minutes in that game, had 31 Draftkings points. The Knicks do have a different guy coaching now. I mean, Fizdale got fired. I'm not sure exactly who their coach is. I imagine it's like the interim. He's probably the head coach right now. Hopefully he's smarter with their rotation and will play the young guys like he should. I know Fizdale was just doing stupid stuff, playing the old guys' minutes. Like Taj Gibson should not be starting for the Knicks right now with how bad that team is. Like the Knicks are going nowhere this season. They should just be focused on getting their young guys minutes, developing their young guys. I expect Barrett's going to continue to play solid minutes every night. It really doesn't make sense for him not to. So at 5,500 in a pace-up spot against the Blazers, you could definitely consider RJ Barrett today. Kendrick Nunn's going to continue to play big minutes with both Dragic and Winslow out. He's for sure a guy you could look to. 42 minutes last game against the Bulls. I don't even think that was an overtime game. I think he just played 42 minutes. So 42 minutes from Nunn, I mean, he's going to play probably, this game's close, 32 to 34 minutes, if not more. Playing alongside Jimmy Butler isn't going to help him, but he's still pretty nicely priced at 5,400. So he's a guy you could look to. But I do really like Ish Smith today, definitely on DraftKings where he's still 5,200, which honestly feels a little bit too cheap for Ish Smith. So just the last 3 games with Isaiah Thomas out, Ish has started and played 34, 32, and 31 minutes, 33, 32, and 24 DraftKings points. He's been pretty productive overall. This is a much better matchup than his last matchup against the Clippers. Getting to face the Hornets here, one of the worst defensive teams in the league. Really good spot for Ish Smith. Really good game just in general to target. Right now this game does have a 234.5 total, which is the highest on the slate. Also a very close 1.5 point spread. So this is going to be the premier game to target on the slate in my opinion. And Ish Smith at only 5,200 is probably still $500 to $1,000 too cheap on DraftKings. Definitely like him on DK today. You can target him on Yahoo as well at $18. They have priced him up a little bit, but still at $18, I mean, he's firmly in play. I think I would try and get up to Trey Rozier because I feel like you're more likely to get like a 40 to 50 point gain from Rozier than you are Ish Smith. But Ish you could obviously target at 18 as well if you can't have the, or if you don't find the salary to get up to Rozier. For value at point guard though, there's really not much value that I like here. Like Cam Reddish, I don't really want to go to. I mean, he had a big game against Brooklyn, 37 minutes, 42 DraftKings points. It was his best game of the season. After that, 30 minutes against the Hornets, only 10 DK points. This is not a guy that I expect to be very productive most nights. Even though he had that big game, and I mean, even if playing solid minutes, he's just not going to be that productive of a player. I think we can find better value on the slate. So I think that probably covers point guard. Like Ntilikina's still starting, and he's still really cheap, 3,500, but this dude just doesn't do much even when he starts. Like he could play 36 minutes and score 15 fantasy points. He's just not a productive player. He just doesn't really get the stats. So even at a really cheap price, I don't really want to go there. So I think we covered point guard. Now moving on to the shooting guard spot, or the shooting guard position. I do really like Bradley Beal today. I think this is a really good spot for Bradley Beal against the Hornets. He's just been playing monster minutes these last few games. I like him on Yahoo as well at $42, but been playing monster minutes the last few games. His usage rate is just through the roof right now. We can pull it up just as of late and show the usage so far with the Wizards. So we know that Isaiah Thomas is going to be out for this game. We also know Jordan McRae is going to be out, and we know Thomas Bryant is going to be out as well. So those 3 guys we can take off the floor and then run the numbers just with Bradley Beal this season. So he's played 186 minutes with those 3 guys off the floor, has a 34.4% usage rate, 1.17 fantasy point per minute average, 22.2% assist percentage, and 8.3% total rebound percentage. I mean, if we're going to get 36 to 38 minutes from Beal here and a great matchup against the Hornets, he looks like a really good play at 9,300. He did really well against the Hornets earlier this year, to no surprise. 42 minutes, 57 DraftKings points. I think projecting him for 40 minutes today is totally fine. Projecting him for probably 55 DraftKings points makes plenty of sense as well. He definitely stands out as one of the best stud options on this slate. He's just going to have to do everything for this Wizards team. He's going to take a ton of shots. He's going to have the ball in his hands a ton. At 9,300 against one of the worst defensive teams in the league, Really like Bradley Beal today. Definitely one of the top studs overall on the slate, in my opinion. And Jimmy Butler, I think, is the next best stud that I like. 9,100 on DK. This is another guy that has just really benefited from injuries the last few games. We'll pull up the numbers for the Miami Heat with all the guys off the floor. So we know Dragic is going to be out. We can take him off the floor. Potentially Dion Waiters could be out, but he hasn't played at all this season, so we don't need to take him off. We can take Justice Winslow off since we know Winslow is going to be out for this game as well. There's a chance Bam Adebayo could miss. Bam Adebayo is questionable, so that'll be some news we need to keep an eye on. But just in 359 minutes this season with Dragic and Winslow off the floor, Jimmy Butler has a 23% usage rate, averaging 1.19 fantasy points per minute, 35.1% assist percentage, and 10.9% total rebound percentage. I mean, just the last few games with those guys out, he's played huge minutes, been very productive, at least 55 Draftkings points in 3 of his last 4 games. 43 points from him in his last game against the Bulls. I think that was like a floor game from Jimmy Butler. He shot 21% from the field in that game and still put up 43 Draftkings points. When he's knocking down 40 to 50% of his shots, just with the shot volume that he has right now, plus with his potential to get rebounds and assists, in a matchup against the Hawks, I think there's a legit 60-point upside for Jimmy Butler again today. He's going to play huge minutes, almost 40 minutes. I think it's reasonable projecting him for 40 minutes, very similar to Bradley Beal. At 9,100, he's gotten priced up a lot, but it still feels, honestly, a little bit too cheap, especially on a 4-game slate where our options are already limited to begin with. He's gotten priced up on Yahoo as well to $44, but still think he's too cheap over there. Him and Beal, right now at least, are my 2 favorite studs to build around. But if we just want to look at other shooting guard options, Tyler Herro's really benefited from the injuries to the backcourt from the Heat. He's played big minutes the last 2 games, 32 and 41 minutes, 38 and 42 Draftkings points. Been very productive, taking a ton of shots against the Hawks. A nice pace-up game. I mean, this game should be played at fast pace. The Hawks rank 11th in pace this season. The Heat rank 20th. Heat not as fast as they were at the beginning of the season, but the Hawks have definitely started to speed things up. So a pretty nicely paced game, especially for the Heat, getting to face the Hawks. Really bad defensive team in general. I mean, I'm pretty sure the Hawks are towards the bottom of the league in defensive rating. Yeah, the Hawks rank 26th in defensive rating this season. Really good spot for Tyler Herro. Coming off the bench, he's probably going to play 30 minutes at the minimum, and he's gotten priced up a lot to $5,900, but still think he's firmly in play on today's slate. You could definitely target him on Yahoo as well. He's at shooting guard, and he's $16. Still feels a little bit too cheap over there. But then you got these other mid-range guys like R.J. Barrett, Kendrick Nunn. Kent Bazemore started last game for Rodney Hood, and I imagine Bazemore is going to start rest of season since Rodney Hood is done for the season. He played 36 minutes in that game, which is very encouraging. 21 Draftkings points, wasn't very productive. He did get priced up to $5K, so on Draftkings, I don't think he's like a lock-and-load value by any means. He's still minimum salary, though, on Yahoo. I think that's where I have the most interest in him at only $10. Definitely a guy you could look to over on Yahoo at that salary. Firmly in play at minimum salary if you need to find a cheap shooting guard. There's really a lot of good guards I want to pay up for today, like Bradley Beal, Terry Rozier, even like Devontae Graham's in a really good spot. Damian Lillard, but I'm fine playing Bazemore as a cheap value at 10 if it opens up the rest of your lineup. And then Troy Brown, the last guy I want to talk about. So he's also really cheap on Yahoo. He's $12 at small forward. So he had a really big game last game, played 35 minutes, had 40 fantasy points off the bench against the Clippers, 22, 5, and 4 with 2 steals. I think it's likely we get big games like this from Troy Brown most nights, especially with the injuries to Jordan McRae, to some of their other starters, with no Thomas Bryant. It's likely that Troy Brown closes out most of the games for the Wizards as long as Bryant and Jordan McRae remain out. Isaac Bonga will start, but he just doesn't play a ton of minutes. He's not going to be very productive. I can look at his game log real quick just to see the last few games. Like, he started the last few games, 13 minutes, 15 minutes. He just doesn't play. He starts the first half, plays like 6 minutes, starts the second half, plays like 6 minutes, and that's really all he plays in the game. You're going to have a guy like Troy Brown picking up a lot of those minutes. Troy Brown coming off the bench, it's likely he gets some time playing without Bradley Beal. I do expect him to be productive when he's not playing alongside Bradley Beal, and since he'll be coming off the bench, there's definitely potential for that. Really like this game. This is going to be the best game of the night to target by far. 232 total, 1.5 spread. $12 on Yahoo at small forward, which is usually a weak position. Really like Troy Brown over on Yahoo today. Definitely stands out as one of the better forward value plays, where he's still really cheap over there. On DraftKings, though, I think there's a pretty good value you can go to at shooting guard, and that's Kevin Huerter. So Kevin Huerter is 4,400 on DK. Moved back into the starting lineup in their last game against the Hornets. Only played 24 minutes because of a limit. Like, he was limited to 25 minutes in that game. He played 24 minutes, had 28 DraftKings points. He was pretty productive in limited minutes. Just the last 2 games since coming back from injury, Huerter's played 15 and 24 minutes. I imagine since he's seen an increase in his minutes that his minutes increased today as well. It's likely we get 30 minutes of Kevin Huerter in the starting lineup. And at 4,400 on a slate where there's not a lot of standout value, at least as of now, I'm fine plugging in Kevin Huerter as a first look value. Things could change, like especially if Bam Adebayo doesn't play today. That's going to open up some value, but for now, I think Kevin Huerter at 4,400 is a fine guy we could look to, especially if we get news that he's not going to be on a minutes restriction anymore. Then he would definitely become a pretty solid value at 4,400. But I think that's it for shooting guard cheap plays that I like, at least just looking at this slate the night before. Let's go ahead and move over to the small forward position. So at small forward, there's not much I like at the top. I don't think Ben Simmons or Tobias Harris are going to be core plays for me today. I'll probably sprinkle in some Ben Simmons just because he has so much raw upside. And 7,900 on DK is not a bad price at all. I mean, he's gotten over 40 DraftKings points in 5 straight games, over 42 DK points in 5 straight games. This is not that good of a spot, not the best spot here against Denver. Denver plays really good defense. They're one of the slowest paced teams in the league. They rank 29th in pace. So it's not the best spot for Ben Simmons, but at 7,900, there's always upside for him to get 6x salary or 6x value on that salary. Point guard and small forward eligible on DK makes him very appealing. So you could definitely look to pay up for him, but I like some of the other guys we have, like Jabari Parker, 6,200. This dude's burned me so much this season, but 6,200's he's a fine play today. Hasn't played the big minutes that I would like. I mean, just the last 3 games, 28, 29, and 27 minutes. We saw when John Collins first got injured, like Jabari Parker was playing like 34 to 36 minutes a night. His minutes have definitely come down, which isn't great to see, but he's still going to be pretty productive when he's on the floor. He's going to average over a fantasy point per minute. This game should also be one of the better games of the night to target. So at 6,200, he's a fine guy you could look to, especially like in game stacks. I'm for sure going to have at least like 1 or 2 game stacks of that game. Jabari Parker will probably make it into those lineups, I'm sure. Other than that, I don't think he's going to be a core play by any means. Same with like Bertans. Like Bertans has gotten priced up a lot. He's been really productive. He's playing solid minutes. Still don't think he's going to be a core play for me though. Like he's just so like risky. Like if he's not making shots, he's not really going to do much. He's a very scoring dependent player. If he's not knocking down like 6-7 threes, you're probably going to be disappointed at Bertans' production at 6,300. Like even at 6,300, he needs to score like, for him to be a really good tournament play at 6,300, he needs to score like over 40 DraftKings points, and I think it's probably unlikely you get over 40 DK points from Bertans. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't see him being a top option with his price going up. So other small forwards, Marcus Morris I definitely want to talk about. Rarely do I have interest in many Knicks, but on a 4-game slate where options are really limited, I'm fine playing a couple Knicks today, especially Marcus Morris on DraftKings where he's still 5,300, which is a pretty cheap price tag for this guy. I mean, he was averaging 31 DK points this season, or he's averaged 31 DK points per game this season, just in competitive games. I mean, you're getting 34 minutes from Marcus Morris. This game against Portland could blow out, but I think it has a chance to stay competitive. Right now it has a 8.5 point spread, which really isn't the worst considering it's the Knicks. So if we're going to get 34 minutes of Marcus Morris at 5,300, he's easily going to project as a solid value at small forward. So he'd be my favorite play to go to, like in that mid-range. Miles Bridges is never like an optimal play, but definitely a guy I would get exposure to in game stacks. He does seem to always play well in pace-up games, like pace-up spots. Had one of his best games of the season earlier this year against Washington, put up 47 DraftKings points in 34 minutes. I like to target Miles Bridges when he's playing against fast-paced teams. That's the case today. Like I said, never a core play or an optimal play because he's just so inconsistent, but the upside's definitely there for Miles Bridges at 5,100. Then you got Bazemore and Troy Brown. You can both play this position. Kevin Huerter, you can play at small forward. I think that's probably it for small forward, though. I think we covered everything for this position. So moving on to power forward. Really not much I like in the mid-range. Tobias Harris, Al Horford, Rui I don't expect to be core plays for me today. Rui, I like this matchup against the Hornets, but his price has definitely come up a lot on DK, up to 6,500. Very similar to Bertans. Like he needs to get over 40 DraftKings points to be a good tournament play at this price tag. And even though he's going to play huge minutes, I would say it's probably unlikely he scores over 40 DK points today. So I'd probably look elsewhere. Really like Julius Randle, given the fact that he finally saw nice minutes, 35 minutes in their last game against the Pacers, which was competitive, had 38 DraftKings points. I do expect with this new coach, now that David Fizdale is fired, we're going to see guys like Julius Randle, RJ Barrett, Marcus Morris, Mitchell Robinson. These guys should be looking at pretty consistent minutes most nights as long as the game can stay close. I mean, Randle's played pretty big minutes this season whenever it's a competitive game. Like the only game he didn't play big minutes, 24, that was a blowout against Toronto. 25, that was a blowout against Milwaukee. 21, that was a blowout against Denver. You just need the game to stay close for Julius Randle to pay off this price tag. And I think this game definitely has potential to stay close against Portland. It's a pace-up spot for the Knicks. I really like Julius Randle in that mid-range. I think he's firmly in play at 6,400. Also, Jabari Parker you could look to. Mo Wagner's in a really good matchup against the Hornets. Hornets have been one of the worst defensive teams this season against centers. He's up to 6K on DraftKings, so he's not like a smash play by any means. He's kind of like similar to Bertans. Like I'd only consider him if I'm game stacking. Now that he's up to 6K, he's not like a lock and load play. It's pretty like discouraging as well to see that he only played 18 minutes in their last game against the Clippers. I mean, I feel like most nights with Wagner starting at center now, you're going to get 25 to 30 minutes from him. But still, 6K, not a core play. I would have exposure to him, though, in game stacks, especially if I'm playing multiple lineups. He would definitely make it into my player pool. And then for power forward value plays, you can definitely look to Paul Millsap. I think he's still pretty cheap on DraftKings at 4,800, pretty underpriced. I mean, he's played only 21 minutes the last two games, which is definitely not what you want to see. I know Jeremy Grant's been playing really well off the bench, I think. I think he's been closing out games as well over Millsap. Yeah, like he played 21 or 24 minutes against Brooklyn. He's been getting solid run off the bench, which isn't great to see, but Millsap at 4,800, I still expect this guy to play probably 30 minutes a night as long as the game stays close. Against Philly, I mean, they're going to need Millsap out there. He can defend pretty well. Philly's a team that plays big. They have Joel Embiid, Al Horford, Tobias Harris. They usually have all three of those guys closing out games, which is going to cause like Millsap to have to be out there. Millsap did put up 37 DraftKings points in 34 minutes earlier this season against Philly. So at 4,800, definitely in play as a value power forward. You're never going to feel great about Millsap like with his upside. I mean, rarely is he going to get you 40 to 45 DK points, but you don't really need 40 to 45 DK points at 4,800. I mean, even if he gets 30 DK points, it's pretty damn good for only 4,800. But Kelly Olynyk's the last guy I want to talk about. He will be somebody that I keep my eye on for today. With Bam Adebayo being questionable, if Bam Adebayo does sit this game, does not play, it's very likely we get Kelly Olynyk starting at center, which would make him a very strong option. So I'll for sure be keeping my eye on the status of Bam Adebayo. Hopefully we get some news after shoot around. If Adebayo's out, Kelly Olynyk, 4,100 will become a really solid option today. But let's go ahead and run through center real quick. Just touch on the center position before we end the video. So we got three studs, even four studs, I guess you can consider at the top of this position. Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic, Bam Adebayo, and Hassan Whiteside. So Embiid and Jokic going up against each other. I mean, both guys are solid plays today. They're definitely behind Bradley Beal and Jimmy Butler for me. But I think something to note is that Nikola Jokic has actually had success against Joel Embiid in the past and this season. I do have interest in him on Yahoo where he's only $37. I mean, he's $8 cheaper than Joel Embiid. If I'm going to spend up at center, Jokic is probably my favorite guy to go to. Now, if Bam Adebayo plays, I really like Bam Adebayo in his matchup for only $33. That'll just be news we have to wait and see on. But choosing between the two centers, I honestly think I would take Jokic today for the savings. I don't think either guy is going to be core plays for me. I expect my core studs to definitely be Beal and Butler. But Embiid and Jokic, I will have exposure to. I usually do play multiple lineups, so these aren't going to be guys that I fade on a 4-game slate. Same with like Bam Adebayo. If he was able to play today, I will definitely have exposure to Adebayo. He's been smashing the last few games. He's had two really good matchups against the Bulls and the Wizards. 52 and 52.25 DK points in those games. Gets another good matchup here against the Hawks. 8,200 for Adebayo is not too expensive. It's honestly probably too cheap for him. He's been playing really well and been benefiting from all the injuries to the Heat. I mean, it's been Adebayo and Butler doing a lot of the heavy lifting for this team. So all three of these options are in play for me. My favorite, honestly, is probably going to be Bam Adebayo if he plays today, especially when he's the cheapest of the three. And I think he gives you the 50-point upside that those guys give you as well, and plus he's cheaper. I like that game a lot more as well. That game will probably have more points scored, and it'll be played at a faster pace. We'll definitely need to keep an eye on the status of Bam Adebayo, though. We will talk about a cheap center that would become playable if he's out. But now in the mid-range, you can play Wagner and Randall here if you want to go to them. Mitchell Robinson, though, is the guy that I want to talk about at center. He's the cover boy for today's video. He's in the thumbnail. I really like Mitchell Robinson today. I don't expect him to be popular at all. I think this is a really good spot for him. Pace-up spot for the Knicks just in general. Trailblazers do rank 9th in pace this season. The Knicks are towards the bottom of the league. So it's a pace-up spot. It should be a competitive game with only a 8.5-point spread. And one thing that's very encouraging is that Mitchell Robinson's minutes have been very consistent as of late. And it's also very encouraging to see that he did close out that game in their last game against the Pacers. He did close out the game over Taj Gibson. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised, like just in the next few games, if we get Mitchell Robinson back in the starting lineup where he should be. Honestly, don't know why he's coming off the bench. He's your best center. You should be starting him over Taj Gibson. With David Fizdale fired, maybe we'll see the change to the starting lineup pretty soon. If Mitchell Robinson starts, I mean, he's one of my favorite plays today. Even coming off the bench, I still expect him to play probably about 30 minutes. And one thing that's very encouraging to see is that Mitchell Robinson will still play even if it's a blowout. So even if this game does get ugly and the Knicks get blown out, you're still going to have Mitchell Robinson out there in the blowout. He played 30 minutes against Denver in a game that was a blowout. And this is a guy that has over a fantasy point per minute like average. He has a ton of upside. He can get you a double-double. He can block a ton of shots. He's got 35, 40 DraftKings point potential easily if he can get the minutes, and I do expect him to get the minutes, especially now that Fizdale's fired. We're going to see their young guys get more consistent minutes. Honestly, and like I said, I don't expect Mitchell Robinson to be popular at all today. If we get the news that he's starting, I mean, he's gonna like pop in a lot of ownership stuff. Like he's gonna become pretty popular, I would imagine. But this is a 10 o'clock game. Maybe we don't get the Knicks starting lineup till like 9 o'clock or something. You could definitely make some late swaps onto him if he is starting. But regardless, I like him today. Starting, coming off the bench, I think he's a really strong option. 30 minutes of Mitchell Robinson with his rates, with how he can get you a double-double and block shots, easily projects for over 30 DraftKings points. And I don't expect him to be really popular at all today. So really like him on DraftKings. Really like him on Yahoo as well, where he's only $17. Same price as Mo Wagner. Give me Mitchell Robinson there, especially if he's going to come in at a lot lower ownership. But I think we need to talk about a cheap center. We'll talk about a couple of cheap centers. So you got Paul Millsap, who you can play at center. I mean, it's a great spot for the Charlotte bigs. Cody Zeller, Bismack Biyombo. Really good spot for both these guys. Bismack Biyombo continues to start, but his minutes have been down. He only played 15 minutes last game against the Hawks, even though he did start. Cody Zeller in that game played 21 minutes. If they make a change to their starting lineup and they move Cody Zeller back into the starting lineup, he becomes a pretty solid value at only $4,600. I'd have to project him for probably 25 minutes if he is starting, which would make him a solid option. It's a great matchup. The Wizards have been getting killed by bigs this season. One of the worst defensive teams versus centers. I don't think either guy would be like top value plays, but I would at least have exposure to them. I would definitely be sprinkling them in. But I do want to talk about Chris Silva. So if Bam Adebayo is out today, there's a chance that Chris Silva could start at center. I would say that's unlikely. Like they'll probably move Myers Leonard down to center, or they'll start Kelly Olynyk at center. I think Bam Adebayo is going to play just for what it's worth. I mean, he was questionable last game and he played. I do expect him to play today, but if some chance something happens and Adebayo can't give it a go today, if we get Chris Silva starting at center for minimum salary $3K, like he's a top value play today. He's been a very productive player this season when he's gotten the minutes. Just when he's gotten minutes like in blowout and even off the bench, he's been over a point per minute player. Against the Hawks, he would be one of the top values. Just I don't expect Adebayo to sit. Like I expect Adebayo to play, but I guess we need to keep an eye on that since he is questionable as of Monday night. But I think we covered center, guys. I think we talked about everything. These are the core plays for now, at least as of the time I'm recording this video on Monday night. Things could change, obviously. If you want to see all my updated content, all my updated thoughts on this slate, you can check out the stuff I have available on Patreon. Updated core plays. I do a roster construction video where I break down the slate again with more updated information and injury news. Usually post that video around 4:30 Eastern time on Patreon. You can also get get access to my full in-depth article that's about 7 to 8 pages long, where I break down all my favorite plays on the slate. So if you want to check all that out, you can. Link is down in the description to my Patreon. Definitely would appreciate it if you guys would drop a like on this video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Click that notification bell so you get notified every time I upload. Follow me on Twitter as well if you haven't yet, at DFS by Noah. And good luck tonight on this slate, guys. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Peace.